fellow book lovers, welcome back to my channel. My name is Elina if you are new here, and today we're going to talk about every book I read during my holiday in Spain. So I'm in Isla Cristina, which is on the south coast, and we're in this gorgeous hotel that is right on the beach. Literally, I haven't actually been to the beach. We've been here now for maybe 24 hours, and we had a really long day of traveling yesterday. We traveled also for almost 24 hours, I believe. We left the apartment yesterday at... Actually, I keep saying yesterday, but it's not yesterday. That's the thing, because I pulled an all-nighter, which I never do. So I keep feeling like we left yesterday, but we left the day before yesterday. It feels like one long day to me, but it was 2 days. So we left the day before yesterday at 20 past 5 p.m. and then we arrived here at 3 p.m. the next day. So we did travel for almost 24 hours, which was very long, and I slept very little. I slept a little bit on the airport, and then I slept a little bit in the plane, and then I slept a little bit in the bus. But overall, I think it was like three and a half hours at the very maximum. That's why we haven't really done all that much. The whole point of this vacation was to be me and my mom chatting, sitting by the pool, reading our books, and we want to see the beach, obviously, but I don't think we're going to be exploring the area too much. Like, I'm going to take a walk here and there, but mainly I'm going to be reading by the pool. But without further ado, let's talk about why we're all here, which is books. So I read a lot on the way here, which makes sense, seeing as I traveled for almost 24 hours. So I read a lot on the bus to the airport, and then I read a lot on the airport, and then I read a lot on the plane, and then I read a lot on the bus to the hotel. So I started reading the Cinnamon Bun bookstore. I really wanted to read something easy because of the traveling. Traveling is very tiring, and I really just wanted to read something quick and easy. So I thought a romance would do. And I am in the middle of the Dream Harbor series. I haven't really been reading it in order because I read The Christmas Tree Farm as part of a monthly book club. So I read that one first, and then I read The Strawberry Patch Pancake House when it came out. And then I read The Pumpkin Spice Cafe just like a few weeks ago. And now I started the Cinnamon Bun bookstore. I hate it. Actually, I hate it. Anyway, the Cinnamon Bun bookstore is the second book in the Dream Harbor series, and it is about Hazel and Noah. Hazel is she isn't the owner, but she basically runs the Cinnamon Bun bookstore, and her main thing in the beginning of the book is she's turning 30 soon. She's turning 30 in 2 months, and she feels like, looking back at her 20s, that she didn't really get the most out of it, that she kind of acted too grown up. And like, she acted like an old woman in her own words. And now that she's turning 30 soon, she feels like maybe she should have done some more wild things. And the story kind of kicks off when Hazel finds a clue in the bookstore. So there is a book in the bookstore that is like crooked, and she goes to reshelve it, like put it properly. And then she sees that it is dog-eared, and she's like, what on earth? Like, this is my bookstore. Like, don't dog-ear my book and then not buy it. But then she goes to look at the dog-eared page, and it has this marking on it. There's like a part of the text underlined. And I forgot what it says exactly, but it basically says something that she can relate to personally, that relates a bit to her feeling like she needed to be more wild in her 20s. So she takes this as like a little push, let's say, to follow this clue, to be a bit more adventurous in the last 2 months of her 20s. And then Noah shows up in the bookstore, and then she ends up telling him about the clues in the books. And then she ends up asking Noah for help, because she looks at him as like a very fun person, a person that really goes out and has fun and has adventures and whatnot. Basically, this kicks off the plot of them taking these clues to tell them what to do to have a fun summer. So my main issue with this book is that it is the exact same plot as every book in the series that I've read so far. So I can summarize the plot of all the books in the Dream Harbor series by saying, we've got the MMC, we've got the FMC. They like each other, but I have to be honest, They mainly find each other attractive. Like there's not much emotional connection there. It's mainly physical, which is another point that I find really annoying. But they cannot be in a relationship. Why? Different reasons, but none of them very good. I'm just a bit sick and tired of the plot being, I want to be with him, but I shouldn't. Like that is the plot of all the books in the Dream Harbor series, and I'm just getting tired of it because it's the same and the same and the same and the same. And that's why I like this book, The Cinnamon Bun Bookstore, least of all the books in the series, because I feel like their reason for not being together is just absolutely non-existent. Literally, this plot is two people being in love, thinking they shouldn't be, and that's it. That is it. That is the entire plot. Okay, this is a tiny detail, but I really do want to complain about it for just a sec. What really annoyed me in the Pumpkin Spice Cafe was that Logan being grumpy was told to us so often, and personally, I felt like it wasn't really shown. I felt like the only reason I would describe him as grumpy is because he was constantly described as grumpy by other characters. I didn't personally find him very grumpy. Jeannie seemed to find him very grumpy. Like, obviously the trope was grumpy sunshine, and that's fine. But I feel like the moment that the female main character starts describing the male main character as grumpy in her own inner monologue, I feel like it kind of takes me out of the story, because it brings the name of a book trope into the story, which makes me really feel like I'm reading a book, which obviously I am, but I want to be immersed in the story, and it takes me out of the story when booktube terms are put into the story. So Jeannie would be like, oh, I came to Dream Harbor to open a Pumpkin Spice Cafe, not to fall in love with the grumpy farmer. And I'm like, girl, like, who talks to themselves like that? Like, who describes their crush in their own head as the grumpy farmer? And every time he was described as the grumpy farmer, I was so annoyed, because I don't want to be reading that he is grumpy. Like, he can be grumpy, but I don't want to be constantly reading the word grumpy. Like, don't describe who a character is with words. Show me who a character is through their actions, through the things they say. I thought when I finished the Pumpkin Spice Cafe, I was done with Logan being described as grumpy, but he's being described as grumpy in this book too. Twice he is described by other characters as grumpy. So that is another complaint I have. I think the only reason that I got as far as I did into the Cinnamon Bun Bookstore is because I audiobooked it while I was traveling, and I really didn't want to read anything much more complicated than a silly romance. And I do think I'm gonna finish it, partly because I'm so far into it now, and I really just... This sounds so stupid, because like, maybe I should just DNF a book. Like, if I don't like it, why do I spend my time on it? But then I am like 80% into it now, and if I don't finish it now, then I can't count it towards my books that I read this year, and I have a reading goal and all that, and it just feels like such a waste of all that time I spent reading the first 3/4 of the book to just quit now. Like, okay, so I know some people put the books that they DNF in their read books. If that feels right to you, you should do that, but I personally feel like I've read a book only when I've read it start to finish. So that is the first book that I started reading. I am now on 79% of the Cinnamon Bun Bookstore, and I will be finishing it, but I don't know how fast I'm going to be reading this. Like, maybe I'll even leave it for the journey back home. So that was the Cinnamon Bun Bookstore, but I just also started the Assassin's Blade. So obviously there's a whole discussion. Should you start Throne of Glass first? Should you start Assassin's Blade first? And I've heard people say both things. I have chosen Assassin's Blade. Please don't come for me in the comments. I am 7% into the Assassin's Blade, so that's obviously not very far at all. But I'm really loving it so far. I love Selena. I love how badass she is. I love how moody she can be. But I also really love the Pirate Lord. Let me actually check my annotations. You want my advice? He asked her. And then Selena says no. And then he goes on anyway, which I thought was iconic. I just love him. I love that she asked, can I give you advice? And she's like, no. Which also, I find that iconic, that she says no. The fact that he just goes on anyway, I love them together as well. Like, not as a romantic connection or anything like that, although I wouldn't be surprised. I have no clue if she's gonna even have a love interest, or if so, who it's gonna be. Literally, it could be anyone. But I just mean, I like their dynamic. I like their dialogue together. They're both so like full of themselves almost, but like not in an annoying way, although if I met them in person, I would think it in an annoying way, but as book characters, I think it is not annoying. Another thing about the Assassin's Blade is I'm not even that far into it, right? I'm 7% into the book now. And I read the entire ACOTAR series, and if there's one thing I remember from the ACOTAR series, it is that the words vulgar gesture were used just all the time. And I laughed out loud when I was reading The Assassin's Blade. And I'm on like chapter 3, and here she goes. They swapped particularly vulgar gestures before she stalked down the hallway. And this is not meant as a complaint, I just think it's hilarious because I haven't read that phrase in any other book. But Sarah J Maas uses it so often, and I just find it so funny that it was in ACOTAR so much that I started noticing every time it was written, I was like, oh, that again. Oh, that one again. And now I'm just in chapter 3 and it's already here. I just find it so funny. Like, I could recognize a Sarah J Maas book just by the use of the word vulgar gesture. So I'm definitely going to be finishing the first novella in the Assassin's Blade, being The Assassin and the Pirate Lord. But I don't know if I'm going to continue the Assassin's Blade after the first novella, or if I'm going to maybe go back and forth between reading a novella from the Assassin's Blade and then another book, and then kind of do it like that. I also have a strange feeling that I want to read a thriller, which, if you don't know me, you think, why is that strange? If you do know me, I haven't read a thriller, I think, in like 10 years. But I've been feeling like maybe picking up a thriller. I used to read thrillers and I used to love them. And I don't know, sometimes I hear people talk about thrillers online and they talk about like a twist at the end and how they were completely caught off guard, and that seems fun. So I think maybe I'm gonna pick up a thriller this holiday, but I have been yapping. So I'm gonna stop this video here. I'm gonna go enjoy the sun and enjoy my book. So I'll see you in the next update. It is now Wednesday morning and I thought it was time for a reading update. So yesterday morning I went on a walk along the beach, which was very, very nice. And I ended up finishing the Cinnamon Bun Bookstore on audiobook. Guys, it did not get better. It did not get better, unfortunately. In fact, I think maybe it got even worse. At some point I thought, okay, the book is over, can't get any worse. And then the epilogue, it got even worse. I put it in Goodreads as 1 star. I don't have my reading journal with me. In my reading journal, I do like 0.25, 0.5 and 0.75 ratings, but on my Goodreads that's not an option, so I don't do that. So I put it as a 1 star on Goodreads for now, but I'm still debating maybe it being like a 1.5. I feel like it's definitely a 1.25. It's not a 1, like actually 1. I think I'm gonna make it a 1.5 star, but I'm gonna think on that and decide when I'm home and I can put it in my reading journal. I also finished the first 3 novellas of The Assassin's Blade, and I'm loving The Assassin's Blade so far. I was a bit afraid that since I don't care about the characters just yet, that short stories were not gonna be as impactful as a full-length book would be. But I'm not having that problem at all. I feel like I'm just getting to know the main character, and I feel like this book is doing a lot of world building that I'm really loving, and I'm not bored in the slightest. I'm loving our main character, Selena. I feel like she is just the perfect combination of like a really badass girl, which obviously she's an assassin, so we want her to be badass, but also has these like little girly things in it. I love that Sarah J Maas chose to not make her just like, she's an assassin, she's a tough girl, and she's one of the boys. Like, no, she is an assassin and she can murder a guy and then put on her makeup after. And I love that. I love that we get the contrast between her being like a badass assassin that kills people, and then she goes to the market and she's like, "Ooh, can I buy these pretty shoes?" I love that. I really love that. I love the side characters as well. I really liked Irene in the second novella, and I hope we're gonna see more of her because we get a little bit of her backstory and we get hinted at her future, but we don't see it. And I really, really hope that Irene comes back in the series and we see where she ends up, because I liked her so much. So I've decided to take a break in between the third and the fourth novella because honestly, I don't really know why, because I am really, really enjoying it, but I just also like switching things up, and because they are short stories, I feel like this is the perfect book to kind of hit pause in the middle and read something else. And lately I have been thinking about reading a thriller. So yesterday I also started Ward D by Frida McFadden. I felt like Frida McFadden was just the perfect place to go back into thrillers after not reading thrillers for such a long time, because I feel like she is the author that is definitely the most talked about online, and that probably has a reason. I didn't really know where to start in the Frida McFadden franchise. So I ended up picking Ward D because the book blurb just sounded like one of the most interesting ones to me. And I'm now at 25% and I'm liking it so far. It is just very fast paced and that makes it very easy to get through. So I'm now at 25% and I feel like it took me no time at all. So I might even be finishing this today. So that was the reading update for now. I'm gonna go back to the pool. I'm gonna go lie in the sun and I'm gonna maybe do some swimming and definitely gonna be doing some reading. Quick update. I decided to DNF Ward D by Frida McFadden at 53%. My main issue with the book is that the main character, Amy, is acting so completely unprofessional the whole time. So Amy is a third-year medical student, and as part of her internship, she is doing her first ever night shift at Ward D, which is the psychiatric... I struggled with this the last time too. Which is the psychiatric unit, the closed unit. However, she seems to have absolutely no idea how a medical student is supposed to act. The amount of times that Amy acted just completely unprofessionally are honestly too much to even list right now. But I will try to give a few examples so you know what I'm talking about. One of the main examples is that she would actually discuss patients with other patients, which is obviously so unprofessional and completely not allowed if you are actually a doctor. I just thought it was super odd that she actually goes to a patient and asks him questions about another patient. She asks Will, one of the patients, how dangerous is that patient in seclusion room 1? Like, you cannot do that. You cannot ask a patient like, oh, how dangerous is that other patient? And there is more. Like, this is not all of it. She actually asks patients questions about other patients the whole time. And at some point she calls another patient crazy while she is still on the unit, like on Ward D. Like, that person could have overheard. And also just the fact that not only do you call it one of your patients crazy, which is already ridiculous, but you do that to another patient. I just feel like Amy is overall not a very intelligent person, and that makes it hard to believe she is actually a third-year medical student, but mainly it just took me out of the story because this was so common. The things that I said were really only a few examples, and it took me out of the story because literally almost on every page she did something that I thought was unprofessional or stupid or strange. It just annoyed me. It just annoyed me and took me out of the story. Every time I read something that Amy did, I was like, did they not train you in medical school how to treat your patients or like how to talk to patients? Amy seemed to have had zero training in talking to patients, which seems strange as she is a third year medical student. If she would have been a first year, I feel like it maybe would have made more sense, but it just felt so unrealistic and it took me out of the story. Oh, and there's this other scene. Okay, I wouldn't count this as a spoiler at all because it literally doesn't matter to the plots at all, but it will explain to you why I think Amy is unintelligent. At some point, she actually thinks a patient is covered head to toe in blood, and then only when the nurse on shift points it out to her does she realize he's not actually covered in blood, he is covered in strawberry jelly. Like, am I supposed to find that funny? Because I didn't. I did not find it funny. And it just seemed like such a stupid thing, and like, especially as a medical student, but even just as a person, who would actually confuse blood for strawberry jelly? Like, not from 100 meters away, not a little drop, but someone head to toe covered in strawberry jelly. That's not gonna look like blood. It's not. That was just so unbelievable. Again, took me out of the story. And it also felt like a very easy, like too easy way to make the reader think, oh, something's going on, something bad's happening, because she ended the chapter with like, oh, this patient came in covered head to toe in blood. And then we go like have a chapter in the past timeline, and then we go back to the present, and then immediately it's like, oh no, it's jelly. It's just such a cheap way to make the reader think something's happening and then nothing's happening. Is that the best you can think of to make the reader shocked? Is like, ooh, there's blood, oh no, there's not. I do not often DNF books, but I do think I should DNF books more often instead of pushing through and forcing myself to finish a book and forcing myself to spend hours on this book that I could be spending on a book that I actually enjoy. I keep thinking, oh, but I spent all this time on it now, and it's like a waste of time if I now don't finish the book. But actually, I should probably think more of it as a waste of time when I do finish the book, because then it will still take me a couple of hours to finish this book that I don't even like. So that is gonna be something that I'm gonna be working on, I guess, is DNFing a book when I don't like it. So Wardi is a DNF. DNF'd it at 53%. I'm not completely giving up on thrillers just yet, because I do feel like I don't want to judge a whole genre based on one book by one author that I didn't like. So I will definitely be picking up another thriller, but I don't know when just yet. For now though, I'm gonna stick with The Assassin's Blade. I'm gonna continue with novella number 4, which is The Assassin and the Underworld, I think. So see you in the next update. Hello, as you can see, I am back home, and as you can tell, I've got this super fancy microphone now. I think this is gonna be good. I never know what to do with my hands, so I feel like every time I film an update, I'm always just moving it around a lot, and I hope this is gonna keep me in check and hopefully improve the audio quality. So let's wrap up what I actually read on my holiday. I was away for 6.5 days because we left on Saturday at around 5 p.m. and then we returned on Friday night. So there was 6.5 days of the trip start to finish, with a lot of travel time as well. And I ended up reading 2 books start to finish, being The Assassin's Blade and The Cinnamon Bun Bookstore. I read most of The Cinnamon Bun Bookstore on the bus ride, the plane ride, and again the bus ride. And then I read half of Ward D, but I ended up DNFing that because, well, I already talked about that. And I read 80% of Talking as Fast as I Can. That is the memoir of Lauren Graham, which is the actress that plays Lorelai in Gilmore Girls, which I was just so excited about this because Gilmore Girls is like my favorite show of all time. I think I've seen it like 4 times, which I don't know if that sounds a lot, but I also know that the first time I watched it, I think was
around 4 years ago. So to me, that is a lot. I really enjoyed this book. At first, I wasn't so sure when I read the first chapter. I wasn't sure if I really liked her writing style because she writes in a way, and this is going to sound worse than it is, but she writes in a way that is very clearly she's trying to be funny, if that makes sense. And in the beginning, I thought that was going to bother me, but then I got immersed in the story and the writing style, and it really wasn't so bad. And I did end up finding her funny, actually, so then it's okay. It was very different from every celebrity memoir that I've read so far, because the celebrity memoirs that I've read are by Matthew Perry and Britney Spears, and then I'm Glad My Mom Died by Jeanette McCurdy. So all of these celebrity memoirs are very heavy stories. These are celebrities that went through a lot, either in their youth or later on with like addiction. And then Britney Spears, obviously her whole situation, which I'm not even sure how to summarize in one sentence. So this read very, very differently because this was not at all a heavy story. It was just her journey becoming an actress. And it's not like her journey to become an actress was like super easy or something like that, but it wasn't like a very heavy trauma kind of life, if that makes sense. So it's very different. And so I would say it made less of an emotional impact than the other celebrity memoirs that I've read so far. But it was also a nice change to read something a little bit more lighthearted, I guess. And I definitely wouldn't say I prefer one over the other. There were some parts that I liked a bit less. She advertises the book as if she's going to talk about Gilmore Girls a lot. I think it is part of the, what's it called? Like the, not the title, but like the thing under the title. I don't know. There's a word for this and I can't think of it, but you probably know what I mean. I think it says From Gilmore Girls to Gilmore Girls or something like that. And that is because she writes about the Gilmore Girls recording the show for the first time and then also recording the show, the reboot, The Year in the Life. And I feel like her memoir was definitely entertaining and her writing style was entertaining and a lot of the things in there I liked, but there was something missing. For me, I would have preferred a bit more information about Gilmore Girls and the recording of Gilmore Girls. She admits in the book, which I have to say, I respect her admitting this, but she admits in the book, and I think she's admitted this before online, that she doesn't remember all that much from the time recording Gilmore Girls, which fair enough, but it did make me wish there was more information. I wish she gave us a bit more on like what happened during the recording. I feel like that is definitely why I picked up the book, is because I wanted to know like what happened behind the scenes, how was she interacting with the other actors. I wanted more stories like that, and I definitely got a few, but I got a lot less than I wanted. And the chapter in which she talks about Gilmore Girls is written like she is now, while she wrote the book, watching the show herself and commenting on it. In that chapter, she goes season by season and she has these specific things she talks about. Like, for example, she also talks about fashion and hair and makeup or something. And it's just her commenting on like, oh, we wore this and this was trendy back then. And that wasn't necessarily what I was expecting, and it also really wasn't what I was looking for. Like, you were watching her watch the show. Like, it was like one of those reaction videos. I don't know if you've ever seen like a psychiatrist or psychologist react to Twilight. It gave that of her watching herself and her own show and commenting to us about what she notices and what she sees, which I like that a lot less than her chapter about the Gilmore Girls Year in a Life, where she actually shared parts of her, because she was journaling at the time when she filmed The Year in the Life, so she had a bit more information to share with us about what happened. But because I like the original show just so much more than I like A Year in the Life, I really wish we had that for the original show as well. So that is my only part that I would say I didn't really like, but overall it was a very nice, entertaining, lighthearted, funny read, and I would recommend it if you like Gilmore Girls, or if you like her other shows maybe, or if you've seen her in something else that you liked her in, because she does talk about Gilmore Girls, but it's definitely not the only thing she talks about. So if you're just generally interested in celebrity memoirs or in her as an actress, then I would recommend you reading this. So that is my update on Talking as Fast as I Can, which I don't know if you can tell by the way I'm talking about it. I have finished it now. So like, I'm supposed to be talking about what I read on holiday, and I read it until 80%, but then I finished it the next morning. So I am just updating you on the whole book, if I'm being honest, and not about the first 80%, because that would just seem weird. I don't think I'm going to get into any of the other books because I already gave so many updates about that. I feel like it is not necessary. I think this is it, and I will see you in the next video. Ciao!